Calaroga Shark Media.
Mo Ketchups, baby. I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Attell was amazing. We have a new top special of the year. I'll talk about Dave in a second. But first, two fun late-night jokes from Jordan Klepper sitting behind the desk at The Daily Show. The topic, did you see Trump is selling Bibles? Yeah, look at the clip on social media. It's interesting. Klepper said, I know people will say you're not supposed to mix the Bible and the Constitution, but what you have to understand is Trump hasn't read either one of them. Klepper again. If we step back and look at this, Trump is getting into business with God, and that can only mean one thing. God is going to end up bankrupt and serving a 3-month prison sentence for lying under oath. Dave Attell, Hot Cross Buns on Netflix is the #1 special of the year. Folks, that's how you do it. It's like 39 minutes. Joke after joke. The jokes are set up with misdirects. There's no big grandstanding. There's nothing about cancel culture. There is a joke to which the word trans is a punchline. It is a harmless joke. It is funny. That's how you do it, everybody. Now, I'm sad here. My bromance with Triumph the Insult Comic Dog, he's going to be so sad when he sees today's podcast and he finds out Triumph's not #1 anymore. Triumph's #2. Really strong. But, oh my goodness, Attell showed everybody how it's done. So I'm glad now that I'm loving everything, because at the beginning of the year, I was worried that you guys are going to be like, does this guy even like comedy? He hates everything, because we had like 7 specials in a row that didn't impress me. Now, this is 2 back-to-back that I put at the top of the list. I mean, great time. Attell, again, the length, and I keep harping about the length. Crush and go home. I had mentioned on the other day, Brian Simpson's special, really strong, but like 15 minutes too long. Here, Dave, crush, get out. At one point, I had taken a sip of water, and I almost for real spit-taked. I laughed so hard. Luckily, I didn't spit all over the TV, and the dog was sitting there. That would have been horrible. Really, really funny special. It's just pure comedy. This is a master at the top of his game. Watch Dave Attell, Hot Cross Buns on Netflix. Current rankings, and I know we just did these. 1, Dave Attell. 2, Triumph. 3, David Cross. 4, Dusty Slay. 5, Brian Simpson. 6, Taylor Tomlinson. A big gap between 4 and 5 there, and 1 and 2 are outpacing 3 and 4. I have not yet watched Tig Notaro, and I probably won't get a chance to. It's going to be a few days. I got some stuff to do. Now, for all the 20-minute podcast episodes I've done the last week, today is a little less sexy. There's no big news. Chappelle didn't throw a pie at somebody. Pete Davidson didn't do something crazy. Katt Williams didn't throw anyone under the bus. So today is a very workmanlike episode of Daily Comedy News. The Podcast Academy had their awards. I'm in podcasting. I don't know if anybody actually cares about these things other than the people that go to these conventions. I've been in radio, audio for 30-something years. These conventions, it's just like, what are we doing? It's either like, this is weird for me to say it because I've been doing this 30 years. It's either guys who've been doing it for 45 years who have lost a mile off their fastball, maybe aren't in touch with stuff, or newbies. It's kind of like the people that are hooking up with hot chicks don't talk about it. It's like that, but radio. Anyway, the Podcast Academy had awards. Johnny Mac, you're a hater. Not a hater, I just don't care. Best Comedy Podcast went to How Did This Get Made? Congratulations to Paul Scheer and gang. Jimmy Kimmel has a new unscripted series greenlit by Hulu. This is set in a Los Angeles marijuana dispensary. High Hopes. Good title, I guess. Little hacky. Well, which is it, John? Is it good or hacky? Can it be both? Maybe it can't be both. If I have to pick, it's hacky. Actually, sidebar here. When I used to travel with Marc Says Hi, who was one of the hosts at SiriusXM, we would get the giggles. We would start making up NBC shows, and we'd start with a title like High Hopes and develop it. So the joke would be, because an NBC show will always take the title and name the character something. So High Hopes would be like the story of James Hopes, who works at a high school. Like, that's what NBC would do. My favorite one was called Side Out, which was going to be about a volleyball player who comes out of the closet. See, that there's a volleyball pun there. Anyway, High Hopes by Jimmy Kimmel follows Belarus-born brothers Slava and Mishka and their stone crew through the trials and tribulations of taking their cannabis business to new heights. In Hollywood, they attract a wild mix of weed-loving customers and as a home away from home for their OG employees who work hard and smoke harder. The season builds to their biggest day of the year, 420, as the gang attempts to expand nationwide and release their own top-shelf cannabis brand. Will they find what they're looking for, or will their hopes go up in smoke? You can tell that I can't wait for this one. This sounds great. Dan St. Germain spoke to the 800-pound gorilla. He says his new hour is a hodgepodge of some of the best stuff I've done the last couple of years. When I started stand-up again, I kind of quit for 2 years, and I started again 2 years ago, and then I had some bits that were on the last album for 800-pound gorilla, and I kind of got to the 2-year mark where I was like, I have all these bits that I haven't put in a proper special, so I figured this is the time to do it, but I'm already working on my next hour, and I feel like in a year or two, I'm going to have another hour to film. So I just kind of want to put this stuff together and get it out there. I kind of subscribe to the Joan Rivers thing, where if it doesn't work 3 times, throw it out and maybe come back to it in a year or two. But a lot of times with a bit, 85% of it will work, and I'm waiting for that last 15% to figure it out. It's almost like seeing a Jenga stack, and you go, oh, this is kind of wobbling on the side, so let me try and see if I could pull something out or push something in that'll help support a little better. And then it all falls. Dan St. Germain's special is called Dance Fatty Dance. You'll find it on YouTube. Omid Jalili spoke to The Telegraph. He says Netflix turned down his recent special Good Times. He says it was too hot for Netflix. There were always issues with certain things, and some of the issues are unfair. Like what? Ageism. He says Netflix considers him not to be a relevant comedian right now. He asked them what constitutes relevant at the moment, and Jalili says he was told anything black and transgender. Send your letters to Omid Jalili. I'm not sure that's fair. For example, Dave Attell, not black, not transgender. Watched it last night. Jalili says at a time when events in the Middle East dominate the news, he finds Netflix not finding him relevant to be astounding. He says, Netflix says we're trying to get everyone, and yet I don't see hardly anybody who's Middle Eastern, Iranian. They don't give us a voice. I'm very strong about this because I don't think they've got it right. I think the mainstream does want to know. They do want to hear it. Julie is working on a new tour called Namaste, in which Israel-Gaza will be one of the main topics. Is he worried about getting caught between both sides? He says, yes, it's tricky, but I'm of an age where I've ceased to care. The threat of being canceled doesn't faze him. He says, I was actually canceled after 9/11 just for existing. In case you're curious in the context of the 9/11 comment, he is of Iranian descent, and he is not Muslim. He says he had won the 2001 Time Out Comedy Award. He was booked to play a gig on September 13th. I rang my manager and said, that gig, I presume they're not going ahead. Manager said, oh, they are, but they don't want you. My kids say, when did you become an authority on this? Who the hell do you think you are? Jim Breuer was on Outkick the Show. Here's a clip.
I had a radio show for a while, and one of the greatest moments on my radio show was there was a call. Joe would come on, and someone tried to say some nonsense, and Joe called him out. It was epic. And then the other time is he called in, and it was one of the greatest moments I heard, not just in radio history, in history, where he came from this deep conversation. It was like from another, it was like he was being channeled, and he was talking about the times that we're going into. And it's either we're going to spew the truth of everything's truth. And if you don't come with the truth, you're going to be exposed, because no longer are we living in the world where we're going to accept the liars. They're like leeches. It was pretty profound. It was pretty powerful, and something I've never forgotten. It really inspired me. So Joe Rogan's been a badass for a long time.
Bruce said, if you look at a guy like Shane Gillis, if he was saying what he said just 2 years ago, it'd be like, oh my God, how dare you? How dare you say some of these things? And that was a guy that was canceled from SNL, and now he's hosting the damn thing. Maybe we should lighten up a little bit. Either way, if anything, I think the woke, we're not allowed to talk about that in the moment. It's dying tremendously. Show me the comedian that talks about being woke for an hour that's selling out theaters and arenas. It doesn't exist. So yeah, we're learning to laugh again at common sense. Now, pay attention to what Jalili just said. Here's what Breuer said. I was talking to Netflix, and one of the guys in development was like, Jim, I'm a huge fan of you. They're not in the business of white guys that are over the age of 40, and they're not going to be. And that's when I was like, so that's what the world they're committed to. Doesn't matter if it's funny. You got to be this color or that sexuality or that country under this thing in order for us to put our spotlight on. And that's not comedy. That's you trying to appease a society that you're trying to create. Again, I watched Dave Attell last night. Dave Attell is a 59-year-old comedian from Queens, New York. I don't know too much about his growing up or ancestry, but looks like a white dude to me. So I don't know. Breuer said this was a slow process that started a long time ago in the work world. Those in charge would be like, well, if you're this color and you get this kind of grade, sorry, we have to go with this type of person, even though the grade's 15 points lower. It was slowly put in a culture, and before we knew it, boom, it's in entertainment, boom, it's in government. When your government's trying to force you to a certain agenda, that's called communism, socialism, dictatorship. Jim continued, how dare you say that? Well, prove me wrong. The Facebook group has been super active lately. Hey, Dylan, I appreciate all the stuff you're doing in there. Feel encouraged to join us. Daily Comedy News podcast group. It'll give you a quick timeout for me to approve you. We just want to make sure you're not a porn bot. If you are a porn bot, I prefer brunettes, so that'll probably get you approved a little quicker. Buymeacoffee.com/Daily Comedy News. My Substack, mcdpod.substack.com. Link in the show notes. Sign up there for free. Melbourne Comedy Festival. Let's do some math. I'm recording on the 27th. You're listening on the 28th. So in Australia, it's the 29th, which means it's Friday night. Good night for comedy. Should be a ton of shows. Let's look. Loading, loading, loading. World's slowest site is loading. This is not an edit. It's still loading, loading, loading. Come on. I like this title, Lord of the Zings, a Kiwi comedy showcase. That's great. Winner, Breakthrough Comedian 2021 New Zealand Comedy Guild Awards. The last Lord of the Rings movie came out in 2003, and these New Zealand comedians are still riding that wave. They don't have a single joke about hobbits, dragons, or really any opinions on the works of Peter Jackson. They're just using this as a marketing ploy. Love it. No clip, but I love it. All right, Randy Deva, hello players, says there's a clip here. You know from yesterday's podcast, just because it says there's a clip doesn't mean there's a clip. Let's see. Well, there was a clip, but it had a ton of F-bombs in it, so I'll read to you. Armed with lyrical rhymes and nasty beats, Randy will have his chance to truly express himself using the one approach he knows best, hip-hop comedy. The Age says elicits uproarious laughter. Did ChatGPT write that? Here's another one with no clip, but it's Ruby Tay's Dog C-word. Such a title. C-word. The hard C-word. Dog C-word. Yikes. Now, this show contains drug references, strong, coarse language, nudity, and sudden loud noises. Nudity? What is going on? I don't think that show's for me. I mean, I like nudity, but I don't like mixing nudity with my comedy, you know? Mo Gilligan is playing Philly tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday. He'll be at the Punchline. Mo says, when I grew up watching stand-up, I was watching people like Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, and Eddie Murphy, so there's always part of me that wanted to perform stateside. It's the biggest market in the entertainment world, so you want to be a success there. America's a different terrain. It's a bigger place where you can have comedy shows from Monday to Sunday, and you can have a busy room every night. Unfortunately, in the UK, comedy is usually a weekend culture. There aren't as many comedy clubs midweek. If there was, we'd be able to network and perform with each other. We just don't have the infrastructure of having many comedy clubs in the UK. It's much more competitive out there in the States. If you go to the Comedy Store in LA, there's like 9 comics on the main bill and even more before that, whereas in the UK, there's about 3. I think my accent helps the most. Once I get on stage, they say, this guy's come all the way from London. He's got a Netflix special. Welcome to the stage, Mo Gilligan. Ears perk up. And they want to listen to this guy who's coming from London. That's what I like about the States. If they see you've come all the way from somewhere to the Comedy Store, they sit up a bit more and like, all right, I want to check this guy out. He's not from here. He must be funny. And that is your comedy news for today. If you enjoy the program, tell a friend about it. They might like it too. Tell Triumph, tell Attell, tell them you're listening. I don't know what I want from you. I'm just babbling. See you tomorrow.